NXT starts off with Ricky Saints. He was cutting a promo. He was cutting a promo about, the NXT championship, the journey and all that. But then he ends up getting interrupted by JC Jane of all people. She ends up mentioning that we don't have time for this, that we have a bigger issue, which is TNA invading NXT. Ava comes out, and then she ends up mentioning, the TNA coming into the performance center, and ends up mentioning that the team captains for next week match, the Survivor Series style between Team NXT versus Team TNA. So she ends up announcing that the men's captain will be Ricky Saints and the women's captain will be JC Jane. And then Santino comes out and ends up announcing his team captains. His team captain for the men is Mike Santana. The women's team captain for TNA is Kalani Jordan, who is the TNA Knockout Women's Champion. This then leads to segments throughout the show of them trying to find their team. Ricky Saints ends up getting Trick Williams, Javon Evans, and then he ends up having a qualifying match between Miles Bourne and Josh Briggs to determine who will win that final spot. Miles Bourne ends up picking up the victory. It was a fine match. Miles Bourne picked up the victory. I like the team overall. Got a mix of main eventers and one mid card guy. Not mad at it. And then for the women's side on Team NXT, you end up getting JC Jane, Jada Parker, Soruka, and then they end up having a qualifying match between Lola Vice and Fallon Henley for that final spot, and Lola Vice picks up the victory. I like the teams. I like the team for both sides. Very interested to see how that plays out. I'm very interested to see how those matches play out, how the styles will be in NXT. I'm very interested to see if they're going to allow NXT to win both matches or TNA to win both matches. Because the story they've been telling is how NXT has constantly been getting the upper hand on TNA with them still in their championships and all that. So I'm very interested to see, are WWE going to allow TNA to win? Now, my theory is that if they're going to do this, they're probably going to just split it 1-1, or they're going to have TNA win both matches. Now, I just have a hard time envisioning TNA winning both matches, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. But I do like the teams of Team NXT, to be honest with you. The only thing I probably would maybe change is maybe replace Miles Bourne with someone else. But to be fair, they didn't have Oba, and Ethan Page is going to be busy, so it makes sense. I like this. I like the teams overall. I'm excited to see what happens next week. Afterwards, we end up getting Jada Parker versus Lash Legend. They're continuing their rivalry. This was a fine match. Nothing major, nothing special. Jada Parker picks up the victory. She ends up reversing Lash's finisher this time, ends up hitting the Hypnotic. Curious to see where this goes. I think their last match needs a stipulation, in my opinion, because this match wasn't bad. It just wasn't, it was just okay. Now, the main problem with these matches for me personally is that you have two women who are just okay to decent in the ring. So when you have two women who, I'm not going to say they need to be carried, but typically whenever they have a great match, it's typically the person that's with them elevating them, not the other way around. So it's like you have two women who kind of need to be elevated in the ring in order for them to really put on a really great match. So when you have just two people who are just okay to decent in the ring, you're going to get a very okay match. But I'm hoping their next match and their final match has some type of stipulation to it, in my opinion, to really add to this feud and to really just make the matches better and a lot more entertaining. But I'm glad Jada Parker picked the victory. I hope she wins this feud, so we'll see how this plays out. Now we end up getting a quick Ethan Page promo. He was mentioning who was next for his North American Championship. Then you get Mustafa Ali. He makes his return to WWE. And then he ends up mentioning that he is owed a title shot that he never got. And the moment he mentioned that, I kind of remember exactly, I knew exactly what he was going to mention. Because back 2 years ago at NXT No Mercy, he was supposed to face Dominic Mysterio for the NXT North American Championship, but he ended up getting released. And I think they replaced him with either Dragon Lee or Trick Williams. I forgot which one he released him with, who replaced him. It was one of those two guys, Dragon Lee or Trick Williams. That was a wild time, because that was back when Carmelo Hayes or Ilya was the champion around that time, if I'm not mistaken. But he ended up mentioning that he never got his championship opportunity, and that he ended up talking to Ava, and now he's getting that championship opportunity against Ethan Page next week. This is very interesting, because I could actually see them pulling the trigger. I could actually see a world where they allow Ethan Page to lose. Is Ethan Page going to lose? I'm going to say no, but I could actually see a world where they actually allow Mustafa actually win to finally get the big moment that he never was able to get before he got released. So I could actually see them doing it, and I do like it. It gives Ethan Page something to do, a little filler feud. I find this interesting. I like it because I like Mustafa Ali. I did. I wanted him to dethrone Dominic when he was North American champion. I was excited for that match, and I was very disappointed when it got canceled. So I'm interested to see how they're going to play it out now. Because the story they're telling is basically, NXT is constantly, taking over TNA with them winning all their gold. I could easily see them potentially finally putting a TNA wrestler with an NXT championship. I could see it. I don't know if it's going to happen next week, but I could definitely see them eventually do it sometime soon. Don't know when, but sometime soon. I could definitely see them finally putting a NXT championship on a TNA wrestler. We them getting a tag team match between Von Evans, Leon Slater, the X Division champion, versus the Calling. This ended up becoming a thing due to the Calling confronted Javon about being friends with a TNA wrestler due to the whole evasion angle. Javon doesn't see it as a big deal because he's like, look, we're cool, and look, we're just in it. We're if we end up facing each other in the in the in the match, then whatever. But we're cool outside the outside the ring, so there's no point of bringing basically pretending to have beef with each other when they don't. So they end up having a match. This was a really good match. Leon Slater was really good in the ring, really impressive. Of course, the babyface picked the victor. But one thing I do want to mention was Tatum Paxley, Izzy Day. Now, they've been doing this thing with Lyra Valkyria, been doing small appearances on NXT, and she's been, getting her friendship back with Tatum. And then Izzy Dame is starting to have a bit of jealousy, kind of similar to Asuka to a degree, having a bit of jealousy towards Lyra and trying to keep, Tatum Paxley away from Lyra. And then on today's segment, she ends up giving her a doll, a dress-up doll that's dressed just like herself, Lyra. And then Tatum was distracted throughout the match, not really being supportive of the Calling, playing with the Lyra doll. And Izzy Dame gets very frustrated and just kicks her out of ringside, and then we don't see him for the rest of the match. I don't know if this is going to lead towards something bigger. I don't know if this is going to lead towards a Lyra Valkyria and Izzy Dame match. I don't know if this is going to lead to an Izzy Dame and Tatum Paxley betrayal. I don't know. But it is somewhat interesting, mainly due to, Tatum Paxley. But I am interested to see where this is going. I'm just not going to get my hopes up because this could just be something filler, something just to give them just to pass time. But this is somewhat interesting. I am invested into it. Now we end up getting the main event. The main event, basically them announcing their teams. You got Team NXT with the men. They announced Ricky Saints, Trick Williams, Javon Evans, Miles Bourne. And for the women, they announced JC Jane, Lola Vice, I was about to say Fallon Henley, Jada Parker, and Sol Ruka. Now for Team TNA, Mike Santana is announcing himself, of course. Oh my God, I already forgot the team. Moose, the X Division champion Leon Slater, and if I'm not mistaken, I think the last guy was named Frankie. I think that was his name. Then for the women, you end up getting Kalani Jordan. She ends up announcing, I think her name was Jessie McKay. I think it was another woman, Myra Sade, aka Jakara Jade. And then the final person she ends up announcing was, I think her name was Casey. Then you end up getting Mike Santana, talks to Trick Williams, and then they all brawl. Everyone brawl. NXT is brawling with TNA, similar to what they did last week with the whole invasion angle. Overall, I thought it was a good show. This was mainly just to build up towards next week's show, to build up towards TNA versus NXT. Should be a very exciting show. Very crazy that we live in a world where TNA and NXT and just TNA and WWE are working together. Living in a crazy time. But overall, I really enjoyed the show. Very excited to see how this all plays out. You guys let me know your overall thoughts and opinions down below. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. But yeah, that's it.